Picture this. You're at the most lavish ball of the 19th century. You're wearing 20 pounds of the finest silk, your waist is cinched tight in a corset, and your skirt is basically the size of a small tent. You look incredible. The orchestra is soaring, the champagne is flowing, and you are simply gliding across the floor. But then, a very real, very urgent problem hits. What do? You can't just excuse yourself to the powder room. For one, powder rooms, as we know them, weren't really a thing. And you definitely can't just hike up that dress. You're wearing a structural marvel of fabric and steel, a literal fortress of fashion. So what on earth happens next? Today, we're pulling back the petticoats to solve one of history's greatest fashion mysteries. The answer is a fascinating story of secret engineering, specialized furniture, and some surprisingly clever and occasionally shocking solutions. Before we get to the solutions, we have to appreciate the sheer scale of the problem. A fashionable dress in the mid-1800s wasn't just an outfit. It was a piece of architecture. For upper and middle-class women, your clothes screamed your social status, and the popular silhouette of the 1850s and 60s was all about size. The goal was a teeny-tiny waist that exploded into an enormous, bell-shaped skirt. This look was achieved with a complicated system of layers. The star of the show was the crinoline, a cage-like structure made from flexible steel hoops that could give a skirt a circumference of up to 18 feet. While they were surprisingly light for their size, they were incredibly awkward. A woman in a full crinoline had to relearn how to get through doorways, into carriages, and around crowded rooms, always aware of the massive space she took up. But the cage was just the beginning. Over the crinoline went several petticoats to hide the steel ridges, and then came the dress itself, often made from heavy, luxurious fabrics. All in, a woman could be hauling around anywhere from 10 to 20 pounds of clothing. This whole getup was designed to project an image of effortless, delicate grace. But under the surface, it created a logistical nightmare for the most basic human functions. The very thought of using a toilet seems impossible. How could anyone manage a mountain of fabric without a team of servants and a total wardrobe change? It seems absurd, but for Victorian women, it was just another Tuesday. And they had a system. To understand the solution, you have to understand the construction. Getting dressed for a Victorian lady wasn't a matter of just slipping on a dress. It was a ritual, a process of building the fashionable shape from the inside out. First, the chemise. This was a simple, loose linen or cotton shift, kind of like a nightgown. It acted as a barrier between the body and the more structured, expensive outer layers that weren't washed very often. Its main job was to soak up sweat and body oils, protecting the pricey corset. Next up, the infamous corset. Made from stiff fabric and reinforced with steel or whalebone, the corset was the rigid foundation of the whole look. It created that tiny waist and smooth torso everyone wanted, but it was also incredibly restrictive. It was more than fashion. It was a feat of engineering that helped shift the massive weight of the skirts from the waist to the shoulders. Over the corset came the drawers. And here's our first major clue. For a lot of history, women didn't wear underpants at all. Drawers became common in the 19th century, but they were not like the underwear we know today. We'll get to their secret in a moment. Then came the mountain of fabric. A corset cover might be added to smooth things out. Then stockings, held up by garters. After that, the crinoline cage was tied around the waist. Then came multiple petticoats, layered over the cage to hide the hoop lines and add even more poof. Finally, the dress itself, often a separate bodice and skirt, went on over everything else. So now you're dressed. A dozen layers, a steel cage, a tightly laced corset. It seems hopelessly impractical. Just lifting all that fabric wasn't a real option. It would be heavy, clumsy, and shockingly immodest. The solution had to be built right into the clothes. So, with this fortress of fabric blocking all access, how was a trip to the commode even possible? The answer lies in the most intimate layer of clothing, the drawers. The single most brilliant invention for a Victorian woman in a bathroom pinch was the split-crotch drawer. That's right. For most of the Victorian era, women's drawers weren't one continuous garment. They were basically two separate trouser legs joined only at the waistband, leaving the crotch completely open from front to back. This wasn't a design flaw. It was the whole point. This clever design meant a woman never had to pull down her underwear. With split drawers, the logistical nightmare suddenly becomes manageable. A woman could simply hoist her skirts and the lightweight crinoline cage from the back or front and position herself over a toilet or chamber pot. The open drawers allowed for all the necessary access without removing a single thing. It was a system that offered both modesty, since she was still mostly clothed, and pure practicality. It might seem a bit shocking to us now, but this was the hidden bit of engineering that made the era's restrictive fashions survivable. Not every woman wore drawers, especially early in the period, but for those who did, this specific design was an absolute game changer. It turned an impossible task into a straightforward, if still slightly awkward, maneuver. Now that we've uncovered the secret of the underwear, let's look at what they were actually using. The modern flushing toilet existed, but it didn't become common in homes until the late 19th century when proper sewer systems were built. For most Victorians, especially ladies who prized their privacy, the bathroom was really just a collection of portable tools. The most common item was the chamber pot. Kept in bedrooms and dressing rooms, these were always on hand. To accommodate a woman's anatomy and her massive skirts, women's chamber pots were often oval-shaped with a high, scooped side. This design allowed a woman to use it while standing or squatting slightly, just by holding it in place under her skirts, discreet and efficient. For wealthier women, the chamber pot was often hidden inside a piece of furniture called a commode. This could be a simple box or an elegant chair with a lid that concealed the pot, turning a utilitarian object into a respectable piece of bedroom furniture. But what about being away from home, like on a long carriage ride or during a painfully long church sermon? For that, there was the bourdaloue. Legend says it was named after a famously long-winded 17th century French priest. The bourdaloue was a handheld, portable urinal for women, shaped like a fancy gravy boat. Its ergonomic design meant it could be used discreetly while standing, often with a maid's help to slip it under the skirts. Usually made of fine porcelain, the bourdaloue was the ultimate accessory for the well-traveled, well-hydrated lady. While life at home was manageable with these tools, stepping outside was a different story. Public toilets were almost exclusively for men. The idea of providing public facilities for women was controversial, tangled in taboos about female modesty and their proper place in society. This lack of facilities is often called the urinary leash because it literally limited how far a woman could travel from her home. Groups like the Ladies' Sanitary Association campaigned for decades to get public restrooms for women. The first public flushing toilet for women in London didn't open until 1893, and even then, many women were hesitant to use them because of the social stigma attached. Before that, a woman's best bet was hoping for a kind shopkeeper or finding a retiring room at a theater where maids and pots would be available. This, of course, was the reality for the middle and upper classes. For working-class women and servants, things were far less elegant. Their main option was the privy or outhouse, which was often shared by multiple families and built over a cesspit. These were cleaned out by night soil men, and were seen as unclean places that ladies of the house would never visit. And what about wiping? Toilet paper was a luxury and not widely used. Depending on social class, people used everything from soft rags, wool, or scraps of newspaper to leaves, or even corn cobs. This fact starkly highlights the class divide in sanitation and the often unpleasant reality of daily life in an era we tend to romanticize. If you found this look into the secret, and let's be honest, strange world of Victorian life as fascinating as we did, do us a favor and like this video and subscribe for more historical deep dives. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss a new mystery. We'd also love to hear from you in the comments. What other historical head-scratchers should we tackle next? So, the next time you see a portrait of a Victorian woman in her glorious, gigantic dress, you'll know the secrets hidden beneath all that silk and steel. It wasn't magic that solved her bathroom problems. It was a clever mix of ingenious undergarments like split-crotch drawers, special tools like the bourdaloue, and a whole lot of strategic planning. Life for these women was a constant negotiation between a punishing fashion ideal and the inescapable realities of being human. It's a powerful reminder of their resilience and ingenuity in a world that wasn't built for their convenience. And maybe, just maybe, it gives us all a new appreciation for the simple, unglamorous luxury of a modern bathroom.